Oh, it's another fantastic week here on the Matt Barrie Show and the ESPN College Football YouTube channel. I am Matt Barrie. I'm not wishing away the summer, but as each and every week passes by, there's another milestone that tells me that college football is on the way. And one of those this week is SEC Media Week, Media Days, Media Circus, however you like it. It has turned into that. And my guest this week is someone I hope you're going to be seeing a lot with me this season. Dan Mullen, who was with us at ESPN, knows SEC Media Week well. Coach, we're just going to name the midweek show Matt and Mullen and Matt, however you like. Thanks for hopping on with me. Football season's here.
It is. And SEC, I'll tell you what, as a coach, that was always your wake-up call, right? You know, you get into a couple weeks off in the summer, a little bit of a break. You roll back in, you jump on the plane with some of the players. Everything kind of feels like, hey, we're going to slowly build back into this. And you show up at the media circus of SEC Media Days and you realize summer's over. Everyone's ready for football. I mean, there's absolute mayhem going on from the minute you get off the plane all the way into the hotel where it's at. There's fans outside going crazy. There's people everywhere. I mean, cameras in your face right from the beginning. It's a scene now.
That's why I love having you on here this week in particular, because of course you were at Mississippi State and then you were at Florida. So you were a part of SEC Media Days for numerous years, and coaches will never tell you while they're coaching what they really think about. You'll never tell us. But now that you're on the outside of it, can you please, what do coaches really think of their day at SEC Media Day?
You know, you have the mixed feeling, right? Which is the fun and the excitement of what makes SEC football so special is the passion of all the fans. And so when you show up and you see that passion, it gets you excited. It gets you kind of fired up for all of the fun and the energy, but then the ridiculousness of what am I doing, wasting an entire day, here when we're in Birmingham and you get in and it's when you're filming a room, of reading mean tweets, which is kind of funny. I mean, like part of it gets amusing. And then you're like, hey, I've answered this same question for the 30th time in a row, because you go from one room to the next, right. When they do it, you're in one room and you get the questions. Then they take you out and put you in another room because not all the media can fit in one room. And you get the same exact question again. And you kind of are like, all right, I'm about at my breaking point by the end. I need to get out of here, get back to work and get some normalcy.
I find it that the timing of it can kind of be genius from the perspective of when you guys are in the middle of the season, you guys are in coach mode, season mode, and sometimes your temper or just your patience wears a little bit thin.
Really? I will say this. We do a game together. We're doing a game, and you get your sideline people, and I think I was with Taylor McGregor. I think it was, and she was like, "Hey, do you remember yelling at me coming off the field at halftime?" I'm like, now I'm on the other side. I'm kind of like, sorry, just forget how I acted.
Yeah, but that's it. But now you're coming off the offseason where you really haven't been bothered by any media. So theoretically, you should come into SEC Media Days in a good mood.
In theory, right? You have the two sides of it. If you've had a quiet offseason, then SEC Media Days is kind of fun. There's nothing good happens, right, in college football in the offseason if you're a coach. Either nothing happens or bad things happen. Right? Where you're answering questions about what happened in the offseason. What about this discipline issue? Why is this going on? All the things that you don't really want to get into or that you've been dealing with that you don't want to wash out publicly when you're dealing with, and all of the issues you have. So, but when you do get there, I will say this, when you do like the fun rooms, when you're reading the tweets, when you're asked who your favorite movie character is or who should portray you go into these rooms and do some of the crazy ones. You're actually in a halfway decent mood laughing to go do that you could never get done during the season.
And that's kind of, and I'll send the picture and we'll show it up here on the YouTube channel. Coach Mullen was always known for his shoe game. And we would send SportsCenter on the road it was 2015, 2016, maybe 2017, but those 2 years for sure. And they would set my Sports Center set right in the middle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Out there at the hotel, at the Winfrey Hotel. And so when Mullen was at Mississippi State, it was his turn to come up on Sports Center with me, but it was all of the talk about the shoes. And so we had to sit there and pose for a shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you know how that started? It's really fun. I do think I'm one of the trendsetters of the shoe with suits game.
Okay.
Right. So if you go back to the first year I did it, I went up, I'm from New England. So we're looking, U2 was playing a concert in Boston Garden. And well, whatever it is, with I'm old. So the old Boston, the Garden,
right.
TD Ameritrade. I don't know, we'll get in trouble from them. So we'll go up there for the game to go to this concert. And then, and the guys at Adidas hooked me up. I go up with them, some of my friends. I take some of the friends. We have a box up there. We're going to the U2 concert. They know I'm a huge U2 fan. So we go up there. Then the next day, I'm a huge Red Sox fan. So we're going to the Red Sox game. So the top guys at Adidas are like, hey, this would have been like last weekend. This is like 2 to 3 days before media days, the last stop of the summer. And they're like, hey, we have a new shoe. We have this new shoe that just came out, the Yeezy, the original Yeezy just came out. I'm like, okay. And they're like, if we sent you a pair, would you wear it for media days? And if you ever knew me, like when I work with the companies, right? Like I'm like, you pick what you want, whatever you're going to sell in the bookstore this week, what I'm wearing, you can hang it in the bookstore and I will wear whatever you put out. I'm like, good thing we don't deal with teleprompters all the time that you do. Cause I will read what is on the teleprompter. Like, hey, if you do this, okay, I'm doing it. So I'm like, I don't really know what a Yeezy is, but I'll wear it. And it became like such a huge deal that I wore the Yeezys to that original media day with a suit. And I think Bielema the next day tried to do it like Air Force Ones and got laughed off stage. He's like, it's already been played. You're too late. And that kind of became my deal of what shoes I was going to wear at media days.
And that's the picture that I have of us. We are in front of the Sports Center set and you've got the Yeezys on.
Which ones? The originals? Was that originals or was that year 2? Was that
I'll have to look. I am not a Yeezy connoisseur, so I don't know which version you were wearing. But I love that you now, because look, we see this all the time on TV, and people sometimes get after us like, why are you wearing sneakers with a suit? Respect the suit. But now we have you to blame for it, and I love it.
Hey, you know what? It's foot comfort with a little bit of style. I think as you've seen now, now we work together. I've toned it down just a little bit. I don't go as crazy as I used to.
I think we should turn it back up at some point. Just make that a thing for us. Before we get back to the football, I do have to talk about U2 for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I find them so overrated.
Come on.
I find you.
Stop it.
You want to know? Because I feel like they're whining in every song. It's like, they just whine.
You are talking about the greatest band in the world. My wife laughed. We went to see a show in Nashville as they're walking on stage. She's like, are you crying? Are you crying?
Wait, but what do you
I go all the way back to Joshua Tree Tour back in the day. So
you're legit U2, like legit.
Yeah, legit.
Everything, every time I think of U2, I feel like they were always on one of their songs was on a Friends episode.
Stop it.
I mean,
that's not U2.
No, not the theme song. Not the theme song, but
I know, but yeah, I know. They're like way above. Come on.
Rock band. All right. So off the YouTube back to college football, which is why we're here. You said something interesting, and I want to dig into this with you because when you step to the podium as a head coach, you want to talk about the football, not off the field. But
yeah.
Kirby Smart, Tuesday at SEC Media Days, Coach, he's going to be hit hard with questions about what Georgia's been dealing with off the field and some 70+ traffic violations, one that resulted in a tragic death of a player and a football staffer. He has to answer these questions from where you sit. How are you handling this if you're Kirby, because you know it's coming?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways. You constantly want to direct back to the positive, direct back to the season. As you will, you're almost like a White House press secretary at that point, right? Where you're just not going to answer the question. You're going to kind of come up with something else. But I think he does need to be direct with the overall mindset of the program. and of where it's at and what they're doing. And hey, there's issues that they need to address and how they're addressing it and how they're helping the team improve. The old days of, you remember if you went back 25 years ago and that was happening, but Bobby Bowden would get up with, hey, boys will be boys. And, people kind of like passed over, like coaches, like the old time winning coaches would get a lot of passes on that stuff in the past. And, you're not getting that anymore. You have people digging in deep, investigating what's going on. And I think what, he has to do is say, hey, here's some things that we've done. Let's instead of looking at all the negatives that's happening, let's flip it to here's some proactive things we've done to help address and fix and educate the kids in the future.
Yeah, because look, the media is going to come at him and say, okay, well, if you're fixing it, then why does it keep happening?
Yeah.
How much is the head coach, like, you're faced with this problem? How much is the head coach going to the team and being like, knock it off? You understand that we are on top of college football, and the only thing that could bring this down is an off the field scandal.
I think one of the things that everyone, and not to make excuses, there's two issues. One, which is in college football, the head coach is really responsible for everything. You don't see it in the offseason. If a player in the NFL gets in trouble, it's player based.
That's it.
It's player, hey, that must be this guy or that. It very rarely goes to the head coach. Maybe goes to the organization as a whole, but not directly to the head coach. The college football, everything gets thrown right at the head coach. And I think that's tough. That's a huge responsibility. Now you get to deal with it. And at least there's usually one voice coming out when that stuff happens. The other thing you have to remember is these guys, a lot of them are 18 to 22-year-old kids. I know because of the hype, because of how big college football, because of what it is, that sometimes these guys seem larger than life. Okay. But I always say this, like, if you really remember back, now I know you weren't this type of guy when between, the days at Arizona State where you spent, majority of the time in the library, right? I mean,
of course,
very rarely, Saturday you might go out for a nice little dinner and then get some late night studying in, sleep so you can sleep and get good rest for the next coming week.
Naturally.
But if you remember 18 to 22-year-old kids, the processing of information, everything I talked about with our team was decision making, right? If you think decision making. And I always thought if I could teach all of these 18 to 22-year-olds, if I can teach you how to be a good decision maker in life, walking out the door, you have the best chance to be successful. More important than reading coverage on third down, as a coach, because you want to help kids in life make good decisions, and it's like you could say, hey, if some guy came into you on a Friday afternoon when you're out there in college and said, hey guys, remember, you got to make a good decision going out tonight on a Friday night. You're probably like, I gotcha. And that made sense at 3:30 in the afternoon, but about 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night, that information's long gone because you're a college kid. And
right.
So I think there are issues, but what they have to remember is these guys are held to a much higher standard. They're under a bigger spotlight, and a lot of them have huge goals. And you got to say, hey, every decision you make, how's it going to affect you, your teammates? How's it affect your family? How's it affect your long-term goals in life? And if you can make decisions based off of that, we have a chance to at least curb behavior. Second, if you know that someone else on your team doing something that is out of line of our overall goals of success, help them and reel them back into making positive decisions. To say nothing's going to happen is impossible. To sit there and say, let's try to make the best decisions possible.
Yeah, because look, Georgia, nothing's stopping them on the football field. And I've said this now for a few weeks. The only thing that's going to stop Georgia is Georgia off the field. And with the turnover that Kirby's gotten the roster this year. I know Brock Bowers is back. It's scary that he's playing another year of college football, but there's enough talent there. Carson Beck, some of the younger quarterbacks to come in and continue what Georgia's built. But the scary part is you can't have, once the winning stops, people are going to start looking and pointing at stuff. And that's where I think Georgia is right now. They're going to continue to be successful. But if the off the field stuff continues, when the winning stops is when people start pointing and saying, hey, look, you don't have control of your program. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And I think I think Kirby's going to handle it fine, and I think that he will today at SEC Media Days, but it'll be interesting on what he has to say. Next topic I want to get to, and it's someone just from being on the other side of the Egg Bowl. Hugh Freeze makes his return to the SEC as head coach of Auburn. I long said that it was time for Hugh to get a shot again at a Power 5, and I think Auburn made the move to do it. I think it's going to be a good move for them. When you look at Hugh, again, you've coached against him. What makes his offense, as an offensive coach yourself, what makes his offense succeed?
I think the understanding he has of the offense. I think, they do some unique things. They're up tempo. They're going to spread the field, use different motions and formations. They're going to change up, maybe not plays as much with this crazy schematic plays, but how they do it, and one of the things is you talk about, hey, we're going to get in the same formation and run the same play. Okay. But one time we're going to do it on super tempo. One time we're going to do it slow, looking to the sidelines. The next time we're going to move and jump in quick motion people to do it. And so I think that's stuff that causes problems, but also not just that. There's one thing to have the playbook to be able to do that. I think Hugh has a great understanding of that offense and how to scratch where it itches.
Yeah.
As soon as he sees your weakness, which is, okay, when we run this formation and this play series out of super fast tempo, you struggle getting aligned. We're only going to do that out of super fast tempo. Excuse me. And then, or, hey, but when we do super fast tempo these ways, it's not a problem for you. But when we quick motion, that becomes a problem. So I think he sees it and really knows the ins and outs of his offense that allows him to continue to apply pressure, not just within the scheme, but within the game.
What was your record against Hugh?
Boy,
I should have done the research, but I didn't. So I need to get it from you.
I have to look. It was close to 5. I think we were like back and forth.
And how many times
back and forth?
How many times you guys play against each other?
I see. I don't know.
I
was there for 9 years, but there were 3 different coaches.
And Hugh's final year there was 2016, I believe, off memory. I mean, you and I talked about it because I called the Egg Bowl this year, and I wanted to get some perspective from you. Like, what was your relationship like with him during the Egg Bowl era? And by smirking, I can already tell it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's not good. There's the cordial hellos. I think the one thing that changed that made it tricky. I think both of us, within the Egg Bowl, when I got to Mississippi State, there wasn't a lot that you're building off of. The program wasn't winning. They weren't doing well. There's not this massive tradition. And so it kind of went of, all right, let's start with the Egg Bowl. And how do we make this game bigger than life? Not that it wasn't already.
Right.
But that we're going to start by we are stoking the fire on this game. I think Hugh came in and then we started having success. And you came in and said, hey, listen, we gotta do the same thing. I'm going to stoke the fire back. Unfortunately, it became like an out of control blaze. Right. And I think you've seen it over the last couple of years, and hopefully it's toned down. Then all of a sudden, we're playing a game where we're both top 5 teams in the country. At which point you don't need the Egg Bowl fire anymore because you've legitimized both programs as national names and national top 25 teams. And, we use this to build the programs to this level. I think, unfortunately, the fire was a little out of control at that point. So we couldn't control it. And I think you've seen through the years, at the back end of my term there, it started to get a little like even, back from like the stoking the fire to out of control. We never had the antics, right? There was some at the very, very end. I remember there was like a one, I think, that really caused issues. There was in my last game there, Nick Fitzgerald gets hurt with a gruesome injury and their guys were standing taunting him when you could see it was a gruesome injury.
Yeah.
And I think that lit a fire, and that was my last year there. And I think, the next year there's Unfortunately, and antics by players that got, I think Matt Luke was kind of part of him getting let go of a game. And then there's brawls during the game.
Yeah.
And I think so. What happened is we used this thing to build the programs up. And then the young guys coming in saw this fire and really kind of took it out of control. And I thought, Lane and Mike Leach tried to reel it back in a little.
They did, yes.
Into making it a great rivalry, and not to take anything away from the backyard brawl, but making it like a literal backyard brawl, whatever, where it was like, what is going to happen in this game outside of the game of football? And so I will say this: in all my years coaching at all the schools I've been at, that is definitely rivalry, the fiercest, nastiest, meanest, biggest rivalry game I've ever been involved in.
I love it. Were there urinal cakes or like stuff that you would step on? Is that
Oh,
true?
yeah. Oh, it was in the every jersey was on their jerseys on the floor. You put the urinal things in the toilet. You don't ever say, we would never say the words Ole Miss. That was right. Completely frowned upon. Like, you never use those words. So I still don't think a lot of people in that northern part, that Oxford area of Mississippi, are very big fans of mine. And I say Ole Miss now. I'm
look at you.
I'm just growing. I'm a regular person, but they still hold that possibly against me. But the whole deal, and I think on both sides, I think it's one of those deals that makes everything special.
I'd love to call an egg bowl with you. Maybe we can see if we can get that. I'll
tell you what, if we get that one, that would be fun. Well, you might see what it is when they have to get some. You'll see some real. I've been done.
Lucky for you.
We walk on the field, walk up to the box. You might try to avoid me at that one when they're gonna have to put sheriffs and state troopers around me getting around.
I called that game last year. It was in Oxford, I think. So this year it switches over to Starkville. So if we were to be fortunate enough to have that, you might
be a little safer.
Yeah, you might be a little safer. But yes, I will dodge you when you start walking off your other's ways. Lastly, one of the other big storylines I want to get into, because you're an offensive coach, you came up through Urban Meyer, you designed the offense from Bowling Green, Utah, into Florida, and just around your career. I find it interesting that Jimbo Fisher, head coach, Texas A&M, brought in Bobby Petrino, another fiery offensive guy, to be his offensive coordinator. What I found telling is yesterday at SC Media Days, he wouldn't really commit to, Bobby calling a game. I hope that he will. He didn't come out and say it. I mean, what's the point of that?
I don't know. I think it's really interesting because I think, I'm a big schematics fan of Bobby Petrino. And you talk about coming from complete different spectrums but I think as a coach, you really respect ways to do it. And you have your system, and when I look at Bobby's system, I think, boy, he has a great offensive system, very successful. Again, he has the answers to problems, knows how to scheme within his system, and the guys performing at a high level. I think Jimbo, in a lot of ways, has had a great system, but people have gotten on him about his ability to mix and match the system to the personnel he has. And I think if there's one thing that you have to understand as a coach, is your system has to be big enough to sway with the personnel that you have. It can't be rigid. You have to look and say, it's going to be a big test. Like Nick Saban's offense this year, I can't wait to see it, because they went from a guy that was going to stand in the pocket as an unbelievable pocket down the field thrower to having running quarterbacks.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're going to blow up the system. It means they have to sway a little bit over this way to highlight the strengths of the players. And I thought Bobby has that. Now, the key is going to be the merge. Right? Of the best offenses I was probably a part of when I was an offensive coordinator is, hey, I was a guy kind of running the show, but Urban would always have a bunch of little input. Hey, let's do this here. Let's do that here. Hey, let's run this play at this time. Hey, take a shot. Not call this specific play. We need to take a shot. Let's run the reverse right now. Let's you have that great meld where you work together and can feed off of each other. Right. The other one, I had Brian Johnson, who's now the offense coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, and you look at the success he's had. But he and I the same way. There would never be fear. Brian would jump in and I'm calling plays. Brian would just start calling plays. And it wasn't an argument. It was, I see this, let's do it. And we would kind of feed off of each other, right? And if I said, let's run it, no, run this. I'm like, all right, call it. Or if he said something and I want to do something else, no, we're going to do this. Great, call it. The key is with Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher, what you want is the reality TV show of the actual headset recordings during a game. Okay? Because if they're melded on a really great level working together, I think it could be unbelievable because you have two great minds feeding off of each other.
But it could also be combustible.
Yeah, that's the key. If the system doesn't fit together and it's Bobby wants to run these plays and Jimbo wants to run these plays over here, now you're completely bipolar and it's a complete mess.
Because I think the thing, and I'm glad you brought up you and Urban, and the difference, the difference between you and Urban at the time in the ascent of your career is you had yet to be a head coach.
Yes.
Urban was the rising star, and then you got into the rising star because with Tebow and you designed that offense. What makes this interesting, even with Brian Johnson with you, Brian wasn't head coach.
Hadn't been, yeah.
What's interesting here is now you're talking about a former NFL head coach and an SEC head coach getting in with a head coach and Jimbo, like that to me is what has this thing on the verge. If start adversity, I mean, they had 20% touchdown rate, whatever the stat was, it was lowest in the SEC last year.
Yeah.
Now you've got this, which to your point, beautiful minds, it could be phenomenal. One thing goes wrong.
Well, that's what's going to be in is I think you're going to see you might not hear it, but you're going to see by body languages of each person. I imagine Bobby will be upstairs in the box.
I was just going to, okay. You have to.
I think there's got to be. So at least it's only on the headset conversations right there.
Right.
Because I mean, I think everybody remembers the Nick and Lane on the sidelines.
There you go.
But that's an offensive and defensive guy. And now you have both offensive guys, of how to do it. And you have to have the relationship. When I first became a head coach, and if I wasn't calling plays, I remember I'd be like an offense coordinator. It was Les Kenning upstairs, and he'd call plays. And at the end of a series, I'd be like, is that the best 3 plays? If we went with 3 and out, is that the best we have? Is that really the best 3 plays we could call? Like, you're so almost condescending, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I started calling the plays, I would be like, boy, that was bad. Like, but you're saying it to yourself. Like, you're
right.
You're not a head coach yelling at somebody else. So the interesting one, right, is the relationship of like Urban and I. If he got on me and I hadn't been a head coach yet, you're right, exactly. He'd get on me and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to let him vent here for a couple seconds. And then let's get back to productive of what we need to do to fix it. And you know what? That didn't go well, but what we saw in that, here's how we're going to set it up in the future. Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to that of if the series go bad, is it Jimbo saying that's awful, I'm just going to call the plays? And, I've been on there. You hear, if you could do a compilation of the best headsets things, it would pay money for what's. I remember being when I was a young assistant on the headset and the head coach. I won't get into all the specifics of people, not because I'll put it in the book maybe one day, but it's their story to tell. It's like, that's awful. That play stinks. That's terrible. The head coach yelling up at the offensive coordinator. It's like, you're lucky to have a job. Like, okay. But it's it went from 2nd and 7 to 3rd and 15, right? Crickets on the headset, 3rd and 15. Crickets. Play clock's running down. Well, if you're so smart, you call the play then, coach. Your job's to call the play. Call the play. Like, I mean, you're like, oh my, like it is.
Oh, that's what I loved about doing the XFL this year is we did have patches into the headsets, and look, and they knew that. But at the end of the day,
There's still a time or two.
Yeah, if you could get it, that would be amazing. Speaking of amazing, this is going to be fun this season. We hope to have some other stuff we want to announce between Coach and I coming up, but we appreciate you making some time. I love this Inside College Football. We'll do it every week, previewing some of the biggest matchups and breaking down what happened the following week. Dan Mullen, our guest today on the Matt Barrie Show. Coach, looking forward to this. It's going to be a fun year.
Absolutely. I'm ready. Everybody's getting excited. This is the time of year everybody gets excited for. It's kind of like that day after Thanksgiving, where Christmas, like it's like all the Christmas commercials, everything start as a little kid. That's a long stretch till Christmas Day. Like with media days, it's kind of that everyone's excited. We still have a little bit of a long stretch until kickoff, but everybody can't wait for that opening. That's why we have week 0.
That's it. Let's go.
We can't wait any longer. Before it even starts, we need to get going.
There's nothing zero about week 0. Coach, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.